What's up, everyone? In this video, we're going to use the PayloadCMS email adapter to allow our application to send emails. Before we get started though, make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications so you never miss an update when I release a video about PayloadCMS and more. Now, let's dive in. At the time of this recording, you have two official email adapters that PayloadCMS supports, NodeMailer and Resend. The NodeMailer adapter is what was provided by default in Payload version 2 and is still supported. It's certainly the easiest migration path if you already had email set up in a previous project. This allows you to use any NodeMailer transport like SMTP, Resend, and SendGrid. Most email providers should be available using this option. The second option is Resend, which uses the Resend REST API to send emails. This is lightweight compared to the NodeMailer adapter and may be preferred if you're using a serverless platform like Vogel. We'll cover each of these in detail. Both adapters need to be imported from their respective packages. So at the top of our file, we're going to import NodeMailer adapter from payload email NodeMailer. It should be noted that both of these packages need to be installed, so I can come over here in my IDE and install email NodeMailer. And now when that's done, I can do the same thing with our Resend adapter. Email Resend. And this one will also need to be installed, so I can do that here. And now with both of these email adapters installed, we can get started. You are able to technically use multiple email adapters for different use cases, but we'll focus on just getting each of these up and running separately as single options. So for now, we're going to comment out our email Resend and scroll down to the bottom here, because first up, we're going to use the NodeMailer configuration as an email adapter. So once imported, you'll need to add the email option to your payload config, which we did there. And once you do that, you'll assign the NodeMailer adapter to the option and open an empty object. You have the opportunity here to define the default from address, which I'll just do this email address, and the default from name, which I'll just use as my name. After you set those, you'll need to add transport options to your configuration and open a new empty object. Here is where you'll put all of your SendGrid information. You'll need a host, you'll need a port, and you're going to need an auth object, which will include user and pass. You'll likely want to put your host, user, and pass to all be environment variables. But first, let's set up a SendGrid account. So first, we'll go to SendGrid.com and click Start for free, and then it'll ask me to sign up. We're going to sign up using our personal information, but you can come down here and sign up with Google as well. So we'll use this test email and set a strong password. Once that's done, you can accept the terms of service and hit continue. And then it's going to ask you to verify your email address. So you can go to whichever mail provider you use to grab a code in order to verify your email address. And then it'll redirect you to verify your phone number. So I'm going to do that here, but obviously you'll use your own phone number to verify your account. You'll be then given a recovery code, which I recommend you download or save somewhere safe, and then hit continue. You'll then be asked to give more personal information about your SendGrid instance. And so I'm going to include most of the same data as before. And a lot of this is required because spam laws are very strict. And so SendGrid needs to make sure you're a real person sending real emails. Once you're signed in and verified, you'll see a dashboard with some next steps. You should follow the instructions on how to get your mail exchange server set up in your DNS, which will prevent your emails from ending up in spam. So you can create a sender identity, as well as authenticating your domain and adding payment information as well. We won't do that here because it's going to vary by DNS provider. But on the left side, you can see the email API and integration guide. You'll click into integration guide, and once there, you'll have two options, web API and SMTP relay. choose SMTP relay, and you'll see a screen that asks you to create an API key. So first you have to provide a name, which we'll just call test, and then you'll want to create the key. So here you have the key created. We're going to select it and copy it and paste it into our .env file. And so we'll just call this SMTP pass and set it equal to our API key. Step 2 gives you the host, port, and user options you need. Optionally, you can include these as SMTP host, SMTP port, and SMTP user in your .env, but it's not required as these are not private pieces of information. So we'll just add them here, and I'm choosing port 465 because that is what is used for secure connections. So you'll want to use that as well unless you have a use case where you want to be unencrypted or using TLS connections. And then we'll select all of these. And now we have our environment variables set up. You can then come down here and check that you've updated your settings and verify your integration if you'd like. Either way, you'll want to test all of this functionality by using the forgot password link on your login page. Now that you have your SendGrid environment variables in place, we can just put all of those here in our configuration. So we'll do process.env, and then for each of these, we have our SMTP host, SMTP port, SMTP user, and SMTP pass. But in order to test this, we do need to set up our sender identity. So we'll go back here, create sender identity, set a from name, a from email address, a reply to email address, and then you're going to need to include some more personal information in order to sign up for a sender identity. Again, this is for spam laws, so you do need to fill this out. So then I can close this and back over in my email provider. It's going to ask me to verify your single sender. And now once you do that, you can spin up your server again, click your forgot password, enter the email address you'd like to forget password for. And once you submit that, you'll see that an email has been sent, which you can verify at your own email provider. Your other email option is the resend configuration. We'll comment out our old email adapter like so, come down, and we're going to add another email adapter where we're going to do our resend adapter. Then you're going to open an empty object and we can get started. You'll want to provide the default from address, which we will do the same as before, and the default from name, which again, the same as before. And then here, all you need to add is API key. So we're going to set up a resend account in a second, but we will do the environment variable now. And since this environment variable is undefined, we'll get an error at the API key level, but we will change that once we set up our resend account. So first we're going to go to resend.com and click Get Started. Create a new resend account if you don't already have one. So I'm going to sign up with my email address here, and we're going to use a strong password for this as well and create an account. If you don't want to use your email address, you can use GitHub or Google as well. You'll then need to confirm your email address, which we'll do right there. And once confirmed and logged in, you should be brought to this onboarding page. If not, you can go to resend.com/onboarding. You can then click Add an API key, and then we're going to copy that, come over to our environment variables for resend API, and add our API key there. And since technically this environment variable can be undefined, we can also pass in an empty string to make sure that the string requirement is met in the API key type. So after you get your API key into your .env file, you can just click Send Email to move on through the onboarding process, and then you're going to want to add a domain. So we'll add our domain, which we will set as our domain, and hit add. And now you're going to need to add these DNS records to your DNS provider. So each DNS provider is going to be different, so I won't walk through how I do this, but once you are done, you can click verify DNS records, and it may take a little while for these to verify. For me, it took a couple of seconds. So now we can go back over to our login page, go to forgot password, and have our forgot password email send. And now we should receive an email asking me to reset my password. You can send emails using either adapter by using payload.sendEmail. As I mentioned in my videos about hooks, you can use hooks to send an email during specific operations. For example, if there's an error in the application, you can use the after error root hook to send an email to your development team. But we could also use it in our post config, where maybe we want to send an email to our team about a change that's been made in this collection. So we can do that by creating a new hooks option, opening an empty object, and then we will do an after change hook, which will be an empty array, where we can then pass in an async arrow function, and then as an argument, pass in our rec payload object. So now we can set a const that we'll call send email, have that await our payload local API, and then have send email. You'll need to include a couple of options here: to, subject, and either HTML or the text of the email being sent. There are more options, but support varies depending on which email adapter you're using. Depending on your IDE as well, and which hook you're including send email, you should see hints show up for which options are available to you. To should be set to the email address you'd like to send the email to. So I'll just put my own in. And then you'll need a subject line, which we'll just put change made in. And if we want to really make this useful, we can also add after our rec, we can add in our collection. We can add change made in collection.slug. So now we can see that this took place in the post collection. And then we're going to need to use text. So we'll just have this also be change made in collection.slug. And this is all we'll need in order to send an email from payload. You are able to use HTML here as well. So if we wanted to do here instead a div with, we'll say an h2, changes made, and then we can add a new paragraph text, and then here we can add change made to collection.slug. And now an HTML email will be sent every time a change is made to a document in this collection. These email adapters are just another example of how flexible and powerful PayloadCMS really is. You can do more than just send error messages and forgot password requests via email. You can also use this to notify teams or users that changes have been made in different globals or collections. Or if you have an important collection, you can send emails whenever an item in a collection has been deleted. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, take a moment to like the content and share it with others who might find it helpful as well. You can also leave comments and questions and suggestions in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Lastly, please take a second to make sure you're subscribed to my channel and getting notifications for whenever I release a new video on PayloadCMS and more. I'll see you on the next one.